Hear ye, and welcome to the Royal Geek Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Rollison, also known as T-Roll. And tonight, I am joined by my very good friends. First of all, we have Justin Sandoval, a.k.a. Sandy. And, of course, we also have Anthony Amato, the legendary Anthony Amato, who we like to call Shamato. Boys, how the heck are y'all doing?
Man, I'm doing good. You know, it was a long week, but I'm glad we're wrapping it up. You know, it's been good winding down the year.
It's almost summertime,
Yep.
Shamato.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're summer vacation. You're not going to do yourself, are you?
No, I'm just gonna sit around the house and
Watch plenty of things.
Content, yeah.
probably things I've already watched.
Yeah, that's the way you do things. You don't watch new stuff. You just watch the same thing over and over again.
Yes.
It's okay.
I
don't blame you.
That's me. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I
currently,
think I'm the only one on here.
I feel like
that does
Amato's more in the middle between you and me, though,
that. You
Justin.
guys wouldn't watch anything new if it wasn't for this podcast.
No, I think Amato would. Shamato would watch more new stuff than me.
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's more in the middle.
Why don't we even have a podcast?
You and I are on.
But it's also like
'Cause we're trying to get
documentaries.
rich.
Like documentaries are
Definitely not the answer.
Join our
the new
Patreon.
stuff that I watch, and it's doesn't really bode well for
doing
podcast content of our
podcast
style.
on
Yeah.
documentaries.
Yeah.
Let's start a documentary podcast.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's
Not about the
Whoa.
actual like things related
Got a
to
niche.
it,
No, I'm just
but the actual documentaries.
But anyway, yeah.
Oh yeah. What are we here to talk about? X-Men.
Yeah.
X-Men. Quietly, like the best show on Disney Plus. Dude,
And they have all of Hulu now.
nobody's
So, like-
nobody's talking about it. I mean,
I don't know.
people are
Shogun's
talking
on
about it.
Hulu.
No, that's true. That's a
Yeah,
good
that's
point.
fair.
Shogun, fantastic.
Okay, how about this? Quietly, the best show on Marvel's page on Disney Plus.
There you go. Now we're talking here.
Yeah, I mean it's getting up there, dude. It's getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how we're just gonna jump in. It's amazing how this is still spoiler free though. It's amazing how Marvel shows on Disney Plus, with just a couple exceptions, episodes can be so much longer, be live action, and they're going up against head to head against 32-minute animated X-Men 97 episodes, getting just straight bodied.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah. You're
Yeah, like it's one of the great mysteries of life is how comic book entities seem to understand animated stuff way more than they understand live action. And I don't know if it's just because comic book is more closely related to animation.
Yeah.
There's like it's it's an extra step to go to live action.
Right.
But there's just something about like DC and Marvel have just done like their animated work is usually just like on point, almost like 9 times out of 10.
Yep.
Like they're like you could say whatever you want about what Sony is putting out in the
Live action.
live action pseudo Spider-Verse. But you can't argue with how good Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse are.
Yeah.
No,
it's
that
so
kind of
true.
stuff. They're making that same, and they're making it like side by side.
That's right. And I was giving it some thought. I think it just comes down to, as a director, like a live action director, you are dependent on other people's ability to act, have certain mannerisms, have certain, eye contact, facial structure, do things with their face, act a certain way. But with animation, you can just have an artist create it to convey exactly what you want.
You're like, no, he looks too stupid. Like,
Yeah.
clean that up.
right.
But truthfully, legitimately, what I think it is live action. There's more money related to it, which means there are more people who don't know what they're talking about with their hands in the pot. I think it's legitimately it. I think it's legitimately a large part of it is like, I mean, I'm not saying there isn't a lot of money with animated stuff, but I feel like there's like the top producers who are not really caring about the stuff don't necessarily have their hands as deep in those animated pockets.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
know.
So that's kind of our broad commentary on animation. Why don't we talk specifically about this week's episode of X-Men 97? Was this episode 8 or is it 9?
8.
It was 8. I can't count. Every week I ask you guys
You do. but
basically
it's okay.
the same question. This episode was titled "Tolerance is Extinction Part 1."
That's right.
Another Part 1. Now, does that mean we're going to have a random episode next week? I don't know.
Nope.
No.
So Tolerance is Extinction, Part 1. And here's your spoiler warning. So you're officially warned. We're going to get into the literal details of this episode starting now. All right, Tolerance doesn't work. Just kidding. there's your podcast.
There you go.
No, but I mean, hey, dude, it makes. I mean, just like that's kind of a buzzword even in 2024. And again, this is X-Men 97, so the themes they're hitting on hit both in 97 when this is supposed to take place, but
Right.
also even in our world today. So it's a big buzzword, but this is Magneto. I mean, we're kind of getting to the end of that, but
But say how,
you know,
how fast you want to jump there.
well, I mean, he's got a point.
So are you saying that Magneto and Thanos are in the same room agreeing with each other? They're both right?
They'd have an alliance.
Yes.
No, they wouldn't. Because I mean, very simply, Thanos doesn't care which side of the line people are on.
That's true. Thanos is random.
Right.
Yes, whereas Magneto is very adamant about which side of the line he's on.
But the majority of people will look at that and both of their stances and be like, you know what, they're kind of right. They're kind of right.
They're similar in the sense that they're both. I think I get what you're saying. Like as a human,
Yeah.
you can be like, oh, you got a point.
Yeah.
They both got a point, even
Yeah.
though their points aren't exactly aligned.
Right.
I mean, and I do think one of the biggest things about this is like they're making it say like tolerance is extinction, but it's because of the hands that are pulling strings behind that it doesn't work. The whole reason why tolerance doesn't work is because there is someone pushing buttons on both sides of the line that are pushing them towards war. Is what's happening. That's what's happening. Is like you have Bastion, who is literally pushing the buttons on the human sides, trying to scare them, trying to cause them to be fearful of the mutants, and then he is doing things to mutants to make it seem like the humans are pushing closer to war. Which, I mean, but from the overall outside, you could be like, yeah, this was inevitable. Tolerance is extinction, but was it really? It's kind of like the idea is it, if Bastion hadn't been there to push the buttons, would have Genosha been able to be, a strong independent nation that gets along with the rest of the world?
Yeah. And well, and that goes along with like the start of the episode. Like Cable kind of gives a detailed look at what the future looks like, and
Yes.
because Scott's like, "Oh, I sent you to a future that's broken." No, it flourished,
Yes.
but at a cost.
Dystopian.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Utopia.
Yeah.
Did you hear that Bishop and Cable got separated? In,
Yes, that was
Yeah.
crazy.
So does that mean baby Nathan just shows up at a different time than Bishop?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that's what they're saying is that he was literally abandoned to the future, which kind of makes
So it makes it even worse.
which actually makes his the way that he feels about his parents make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Because you would have thought if Bishop had been raising him, he would have probably at least tried to drive home some of the points of hey, you were sent here, but it wasn't because your parents hated you.
Yeah,
It wasn't
exactly.
because of
Right.
it wasn't because of anything like that. It was because they loved you. It was because they
Yeah.
knew they were sending you to be hopefully saved.
Yeah. Which I mean, he's obviously cured. He's not dead. Obviously, so
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
back. But then
but there's still scars.
That's right, exactly, which you see between Scott and his interactions,
like literal scars.
Yeah.
yeah, his eye. But him and Scott were they were at each other again.
Yes.
This episode, and Jean's just trying to play that peacemaker, but she gets some of the flack because she's not Madeline, and he's just kind of throwing it
Yeah.
back at her. But yeah, Cable. I mean, I really liked seeing that future glimpse that he showed. Where they're all all the mutants are the backbone of America,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, or the
Yeah,
world,
yeah,
the
that's right.
world, yeah.
Yeah, but they do all the work that the people who are naturally born in the United States, humans, don't want to do.
I mean, yeah, there you go.
Yes, and they do it for almost nothing. Yet they're still considered to not contribute to society.
Tolerance.
Yes,
Gosh,
yes.
All right.
But yes, but yeah, and it is it's hard to look at that world in a way of because you assume that you want that world to be almost dystopian because you want that the idea of mutants being oppressed because they're supposed to be the heroes. You want that to be the negative. You know, you don't want that to be seen as this was somehow a positive good for the rest of the world. And it's hard to like you think of generally like you think utopian, you're like, oh, this must be good in some way. Like it's generally perceived as a utopian society is generally considered to be good.
It's like the footage not footage, but the
Flash.
the shots that they show of the future. It's like where everything's peaceful again, except for
Mutant life. Yeah.
yeah, except for what you said, the mutants who survive. They
Yeah.
just put to work. Gosh,
Yes.
that's crazy. So it's like if you just don't show that clip, you're like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But
it's messed up. It really is.
Oh, for sure.
And
absolutely.
which granted, I mean, it starts to add the moral question of are the needs of the few outweigh the many, like that kind of thing. Like is that like the many have a chance of utopia, right? But there's like a dystopia for the few.
Yes.
Like, but where's that line? Like,
Yes.
Then trust me, I know it's bad. I know it's wrong, right? But like, you start to ask yourself, like, is it a cost that you're willing to pay? That kind of thing.
Well, man, it's just like I'm just thinking like if I'm not here's my thing. If I'm a mutant in this world and I'm not on the X-Men,
Yeah, life sucks.
if I'm not on the X-Men, like there is a moral compass of just being an X-Man, being on the team, being one of Charles' X-Men.
Yes.
And now that he's back, you know, right? but like just being on the team, there's a natural upholding of morality and like trying to be neutral and trying to be peacemakers. But if I'm a mutant in this world and I'm not literally in that mansion as an X-Man, it's like, sorry, bro,
Yeah,
I'm with Magneto.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
You,
I mean,
you're trying to take me out.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm taking y'all out.
You're not wrong, man.
and I think that's generally how the humans view mutants in general. Is in those two categories. You're either with the X-Men in that small group, or you are with Magneto, and you have this view of, you know, there is a mutant superiority, which I think you see it play out, and in the scene where, you know, Bastion is talking about humans and losing jobs. You know,
Yeah.
10
taxi driver.
humans 10 humans get laid off because there's a mutant who has the strength of 10 men, or where does the taxi driver, you know, where does he fall in when there's a teleporter that can get them, you know, there in a blink? Yes.
So that's nuts.
Yeah,
dude.
and even even in a mutant world, like we were talking about Genosha, like what would it look like? How would the economy, how would the
Functioning
market
society.
work
Yeah. Mhm.
in Genosha? You
Yeah.
know, maybe your gifts are teleportation. That's cool. But what if someone else's gifts are like long fingernails?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you
know,
helping out?
yeah,
Like,
dude. It's
you
just
pulling
kind
your
of,
weight.
It's just kind of a nuanced, convoluted kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm just getting to more of the man, especially like if you're a mutant who is like been holding out. Like I'm trying not to be a rioter. I'm trying not to be a protester. I'm trying not to.
I just want to be normal,
Just-
like that
yeah.
type of person.
And then you see the attack on Genosha, literally a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
And the point I'm making is, how can anyone in this world fault a mutant for feeling that way?
And when you say you're done, you mean like that as like as a
I'm
call,
done with
as a-
peace.
as like a call to action. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
So you're talking
Like-
about like 9/11 is what you're talking about. Like when that happened, so many
Correct.
people joined the
Absolutely.
military, armed forces,
Enlisted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
that's what you're talking
They
about.
were
like-
pushed over the edge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. It's like
I mean that's the intensity. That's
that's
where they're at.
I think so.
Yeah.
And like you just like you don't. Again, you know, we take it back to Thanos, but you know, Magneto might have more of a point, or you know, or it creates a conversation.
It
But,
does. Absolutely.
man. Again, but just to this episode,
Mm-hmm. Well, the next thing we see is we got Rogue and Nightcrawler. Like Rogue's passed out on this little hospital bed.
Yeah, so,
from
like-
the last fight. With
Yeah.
the
Super
the
Sentinel.
yeah, whatever.
what do we call him? Trask. Trask Prime.
There you go.
That's not what we called him.
No.
But that does sound cool.
That does sound really cool, actually. Let's go with that. So yeah, so she's knocked out, and then Kurt is there, just taking care of her.
Yeah.
And he has a nice little dialogue there about just his past and your family, blood, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
man,
Yes.
I mean, that was like honestly one of my favorite parts of the
His
episode.
lines are like they're poignant and they're
hit.
well spoken and
And they come from a German accent.
yes,
Yes,
yes, and they're
yes.
very allegorical and they're like very like they're just like they're very well done. And he does a
Yeah.
great job of showing
It's-
like how just because your blood doesn't mean you're family.
It gives me vibes of the German doctor in Captain America, the first Avenger.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes, Stanley Tucci's character.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
But like, and everything he says is like what the ideal statement
yes, should be.
should be. Like, not just for mutants, but for mankind, like in general.
Yes.
Like, it's tolerance at its core, right?
Yes.
Like,
Right.
but yeah, that whole scene, man. Oh, so good, man.
Yes.
I'm trying to think with immediately after that scene. I believe it's Hank in the basement, right? Isn't it?
Well, it's
Or-
multiple scenes are happening.
Yeah,
Hank's
there's a few.
Hank's happening,
Mhm.
talking to the news reporter.
his news reporter friend.
Tilby.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Bastion with all the screens around him.
Bastion with all the screens,
which we do get some
Okay, first,
sick cameos.
so really, there's cameos all over this
This episode is sprinkled.
Yes.
Dude.
So why don't we talk about the villain cameos
yes
first?
Yes, we get Doctor Doom first, which is the first
Just a casual Doom.
Yeah, the first post like MCU era Doctor Doom.
Yes.
That's not in.
Don't
Force
we
Fix.
earlier in the episode also get a Kamatage reference?
Well, okay, you stole my thunder. I said villains.
He did say villains, and you went ahead and jumped there.
But that depends on how you-
But then we get also Baron Zemo.
Zemo.
Yes.
Yeah,
That was
animated,
amazing.
which
Yep.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
Those are really the main two. Everyone else is shadowy
so
figures.
Kamatage, what's funny is, so I think it's when was Cable explaining something? I think,
I think Cable was,
yeah.
it was on that.
Yeah,
scene.
because they're talking about him time traveling.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's almost like no matter what he does, they're talking essentially about what I would argue is a nexus point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
events that have to happen no matter what. I think
Yes.
that's what Cable's realizing. Like, no matter how hard I try, it won't work.
I think it was Beast that brought up the Mystics refer to it as, and he mentioned it like a
Yes.
like a time point or something like
Yes,
that.
but here's
Yeah.
what's so cool. I don't know if this was just a cool little line.
Mm-hmm.
So he mentions Kamatage, but the first thing, the line goes like, I'm not going to get it word for word, but the first thing Hank says is he says, strange.
Yes.
And
yes,
then literally like,
yes.
which is like Doctor Strange,
yes,
you
yes, Yep.
know? But and then he talks about Kamatage and the mystics at Kamatage
Yep.
talk about, he didn't say nexus point, but things that have to happen.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was so funny how it's like a play on word, like
It's so good.
Oh,
I know.
so
They knew what they were doing. They knew
Yes,
exactly what they
yes,
were doing.
yes.
Yeah. So there's so many references there, and just that block of,
Yep.
of time right there.
other cameos.
Throughout the episode, we're just gonna jump around. real quick?
Well, let's just hit all the cameos then.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Spider-Man is the largest
Yes.
one at the end.
Yeah. So because of Magneto going to what was the North Pole?
Yeah. hmm
Yes.
And going,
Basically, human
Berserk.
EMP or mutant EMP. Or
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
Spider-Man. They show a scene of New York where
So we
Spider-Man.
see Spider-Man.
Then we go flying all over to Japan where you see Silver Samurai.
Yes.
Which sick. And then they do the tank that they have been showing where they're creating like people / mutants, and you see Omega Red in the tank, which is that'll be an interesting storyline to see if he actually emerges here in the next.
Yeah.
He's the one with the whips that come out of his arms.
Yeah, yeah.
So, am I missing one?
Talking about Whiplash. I'm just kidding.
Kind of actually.
Keep going.
Was there one?
Gosh, there's so
I
many.
don't think there was another one after that. I think that was.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
I feel like there was something else, but I could be wrong. So maybe we'll just.
We'll get to it if it has inspired us.
Well, yeah. No, we'll just keep going. Okay, so it turns out, Cable,
Cyclops
and Jean,
Mhm.
Scott and Jean. So one nitpicky thing,
Here we go. I love it.
the cheesy little "you don't mess with the sun."
Yes.
I feel like I was watching
Yeah.
like Mitchell's vs. Machines.
Yes.
Just like the family
Fantastic.
thing.
Yeah.
Really cheesy. Of course, it worked out, but
Yeah.
really cheesy.
Well-
They go to. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say they start off in the Blackbird,
Yeah.
and then they end up in a Porsche.
Yes.
He's like,
But-
"You have a Porsche?"
Oh, and the look that Scott gives afterwards is like the kind of like I'm cool to my son. That kind of
Yeah.
I love that, dude.
Yes.
Yeah, that
as
was
as a
good.
dad, I can relate. Like when your
Yeah.
kid thinks you're like the coolest thing ever,
Yes.
like
Yes.
that's the smile you give right there, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
That was
And I did like the whole moment where she like seatbelt. Like
yes,
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
yep,
so
yep.
good.
that was a nice little mom
And
moment.
like even the way they had Cable kind of look down, like, what the heck is this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
It was so good.
And like in the way that she reacts to like she's like Hank's gonna kill you. Is the third blackbird in his mini buds just like
Yes. So they show up at sorry, I didn't time that yawn up well enough. They show up at Bastion's childhood home,
yes.
and you could like, dude, right away. I'm like, y'all better just like kill his mom. Like, I know they're not gonna do it because they're
Just
the
sitting
X-Men.
there in this like decrepit
It's
house.
clearly a
Yeah.
trap.
Yeah,
The
or at
whole-
the very least, like understood that this was like maybe not killer because like that wouldn't have been like the X anyway. But
Right,
like
Scott's at that point.
Or let's just like,
Cable would have done it. Like he's just been like pop.
or
and
let's just be
been
like,
done with it.
nah, this dude.
Like,
is
knowing that there
true.
was something
Let's watch
wrong
her.
here.
I'm not helping her up. Like I can,
Yeah, I'm not helping her.
she can get her up herself.
Yeah. Well, and also like the fact that like she literally says, "Your son said you would be coming for me tomorrow." Like, why wouldn't you be like?
Well, it was probably like a senile thing. Like, oh, she's crazy. Maybe she thinks we're somebody else.
I didn't
and-
take it that way.
No?
No, I didn't
Really?
Take it that way. Yeah, you
I
took
kind of
it
I take it that way.
because you hate old people.
I do. I can't stand old people.
I 100%.
That's, pod
I mean,
certified.
I took that as like he was like, "Hey, some people are gonna come see you this day, and they just happen to be a day earlier than they were supposed to be." I legitimately just like that was him playing his hand. He was literally just like, "Here you go."
yeah.
But it's at their house or at his house
room.
in his room,
Artwork.
where throughout the whole episode, everywhere, whether they're at the mansion or here or at the shopping mall with Roberto and
Jubilee.
Jubilee, all these Super Sentinels are getting activated.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. Actually, these apparently
Which last week he speculated, was it like upon death? Because that's what happened with Trask.
correct. Yeah,
Or was it like an activation? And clearly,
activation.
it's an activation.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, ironically enough, Hank did.
Did
That's the way I see it. Is Hank
activated them?
by running that program?
No, I don't think. I didn't see that. I don't think. I think Bastion did that right after that. Right? He was the one that's he. He is the one who did
So
that.
you're just saying it was a convenient, for story
yes,
that it
that's
has.
what
Okay.
I think. Yeah.
I mean, I could see it either
I think
way.
we watched that scene again. Like it's Hank is just looking for them.
He's using Cerebro.
He's looking for them currently, and then Bastion is activating them, and then they start appearing
I
onto the
could
thing.
see it either way though, because you
Yeah.
could argue that using Cerebro almost like it puts something out. Into
Like
the,
I see that as like it was
Yeah.
a moment of like doing exactly what Cerebro does is it amplifies
Searches, yeah.
that's ability. So the way I see it is him putting it into Cerebro is him like essentially sending out a signal to awaken all Super Sentinels in the world.
Yeah, but Bastion, I forget what he says, but I feel like Bastion, whatever he does and says, Sinister is right there, and like they activate him. Like I'm telling you, I remember seeing him at the panels.
Yeah.
But anyway, they all activate everywhere, and there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
And we see the Jubilee and Roberto in the mall, and they're activating after they're trying on clothes. You see the entire neighborhood that the Summers are in.
Yeah.
And then the mansion, the protesters outside, which led to an epic
half of them turn into
fight
for
between
sure.
Wolverine, Morph, and Nightcrawler.
Well, we get like
Yes.
one again. We get like so little Morph.
Hey, we do.
We
Yeah.
do. He's Juggernaut, and that's essentially
That's
it.
it.
But this episode, Nightcrawler and Wolverine,
Oh, that was
man.
amazing.
Oh,
They were
my
legit. That was a legit. That was a
goodness.
pretty awesome team up.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
And just like the juxtaposition of the way they fight, it was just like they just fight so differently.
Yeah.
Like, Wolverine's so like I'm just barreling straight through, and like everything about Nightcrawler was about like elegance and like
finesse.
yes, and
Yeah.
a finesse.
And I mean, I'm gonna say it. I love the scene where Wolverine just comes in, charred, like no uniform anymore, and then he's like, "I got 6 reasons for you," and then Nightcrawler
Yes.
appears, does make that 9.
Yes,
That's so good, man.
Yeah, and they're protecting
Rogue,
Rogue.
yeah.
yes,
Yeah, and then the Summers are together, and they're having a tough time.
Yeah. Oh my god, they're
getting away.
they're swarmed. They're
Yeah, it's like,
outnumbered.
It's like birds hitting your, on their
windshield.
Yeah,
Which is where they ditch the bird and they land
Yes.
it in the Porsche, and then they rip the roof off. And how cool was it that Jean is not only deflecting with her mind, but she's steering the car now while
Yes.
Scott paves a way through a
Yes.
mountain with
Yes.
his laser beam.
Which just like
And Cable's
it
holding
was
off
like-
the people
yes.
coming towards him.
Yeah,
Like,
that was so cool. Like
Incredible.
once again, like something that X-Men do way better than
Teamwork.
just about teamwork is something that they do way better than just every other
Yeah.
superhero franchise, it seems. It's crazy that they're able to do that.
And they didn't have to even say or coordinate it. They just knew. Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
he looked over at Gene, and then that was it. He let go
Yes.
of the wheel. That was all he did. And that was incredible.
Yeah,
man.
Yes.
Absolutely incredible.
So good. Okay.
and there were just so many good, like, in the entire everything, there were a lot of moments that were like based out around the idea of family.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so like, you had the Summers with everything they had to do with family. You had
Kurt and Rogue. Yeah.
you had Kurt and Rogue, everything they had to do with family. You had everything to do with Roberto and his family, and like, and it's all about choice. Like you're seeing these choices. You're seeing, where, Rogue and Nightcrawler choose each other as family, even though they're technically like siblings, but like, they weren't like. They were never like growing up together type of siblings. Like they were kind of like found each other, became siblings, even though they were truly siblings.
Yeah.
And then you have, of course, Roberto kind of like falling in the other direction, like falling out of his family.
Right. His family doesn't choose him. That kind of thing.
Yes, essentially. And then, of course, you have the Summers finally, like, for a moment, feeling like they're a family once again. Because they had so many moments of, like, discourse and argument, like, you're not my real dad, type of, or you were never there. You're not my real mom, type of situations. All those things, and they finally like are able to come together in this moment of stress.
Yeah. And even Charles Xavier showing
Yes,
up,
finally,
calling
yes.
his X-Men, which is his family.
Yes.
Well, then we get towards the final scene here, and it's Magneto's let out, which we've seen him throughout the whole episode being confined, and
Yes.
they have the inhibitor collar on him, and then I guess the UN Dr. Cooper,
Yes.
she lets him go, and Magneto. Oh, Bastion makes it a point to. Oh no, Sinister. Was it Mr. Sinister? Somebody says Magneto's free. They let Magneto free.
Sinister says
Sinister
Sebastian, right?
almost to him, almost like he like FaceTimed him.
Yeah.
In like 1997, and it's like that stupid woman
Yes.
let him out.
And he realizes how big of a deal that is. Like you can hear
Sinister does.
Yeah, Sinister does.
Bastion's like, it doesn't
it'd be
matter.
fine.
Sinister's like, no.
No, this is a big deal.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is the reason why we went for him first. Like this is like
this is why he had a collar on his neck.
Yes.
yeah, so that you can hear in Sinister's voice how important this is.
Yeah.
And you see Magneto in his nice little like tidy black underwear.
Yeah.
Flying through. He breaks the
Everywhere.
atmosphere,
Yeah.
goes to the North Pole, and he uses the magnetic fields of the North Pole to amplify his powers.
Yep.
And just completely sets off an EMP and destroys like all
the
technology.
Sentinels.
Yeah.
Oh, you think all technology?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think it's,
I think it
right?
knocks out like a significant amount of technology because
Yeah.
remember
It's
it took
got
out
to.
that
It's got
nuclear
to.
power plant at the
Yeah.
very least.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's why I think it's part of the reason why Wolverine says that it wasn't just
it was declaring war.
declaring war because he wasn't just knocking out the Super Sentinels. If it was just that would have been seen as an act of self-defense. I think essentially, like, these were coming to get us.
Right.
We were doing, even though these were, humans at some point, but these were obviously no longer humans. But knocking out all that kind of stuff is a very, like,
Taking away people's toys. You
Yes.
take away people's toys, you're going to
You
cause
just-
some problems.
I mean, you just think about a government. Like, you're like, okay, so our entire Defense Department is now shut down.
Yeah.
Like that is an extremely volatile moment, and the UN isn't going to look on that well. Like militaries aren't going to look on that well,
Right.
yeah.
And that is why the one word Magneto says in this whole episode was so awesome
Yes.
and powerful. And it's like a close up of like half his face. You just see like half of his mouth, I think.
Yeah.
And he just says, "Enough." It's just
Yes.
like I'm over it.
Moments after Dr. Cooper says Magneto is right.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Like it's literally the next thing.
Okay, so here's my thing. Okay, critique not of the show, but of Bastion. Okay, if you, why would you not? What's the purpose of keeping Magneto
Alive.
Alive.
Yeah.
seriously, work this
No,
out. with me.
there is no reason.
If
you
he
kill
is
him-
your
if you kill
one
him,
threat and you can literally kill him right now,
yeah,
and you've already been so just merciless everywhere,
why not? Right?
why not?
Good point. Very
Curious.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kamano?
I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know if he had him as some part of his bigger plan that he was going to be a part of. Like, maybe he had some idea of using him for something. You know, I'm not 100% sure what his exact plan is or his
Well, I
idea
guess
if that is.
technically the future that Cable showed the team, the cities looked incredible. Maybe Magneto's powers were used to develop a brighter
Yeah.
future.
Or,
Well,
or maybe he could think. Maybe he was like, maybe I can, adjust his mind. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe he needed. Maybe the reason why Bastion wasn't so worried about it was because he knew that this was a moment that was needed for the future.
Okay.
Like I could see that
Because
being
he
his
didn't seem worried, but Bastion,
Well,
for what we can
at
tell,
first he didn't seem worried, but then he had a face of like, oh,
well, yeah.
yeah.
But I don't think Bastion has anything to do with like he's created from the future, but I don't know if necessarily he has future thoughts or memories or
Well, I was just thinking, I'm getting like some, and it's funny, we get Zemo of all people in this episode,
yeah.
but I'm getting some like Civil War Zemo vibes from Bastion. Like maybe
Mm-hmm.
he's playing chess. There you go.
Hey,
With Charles and
Magneto.
and Magneto, where he's like, I need to get them to fight. Or the only other thing I think of is, remember when Sinister says, I'm using Bastion?
Yeah,
Maybe Sinister's like, part of the deal was we keep Magneto alive because he needs his like
DNA.
DNA. That's
Maybe.
the only,
That's
Yeah.
probably the only
that would probably be the more
explanation
yeah.
that I'm willing to.
But
accept.
if I'm thinking like, there's only like a few kind of like, what do they call them, like Category 5 mutants or Level 5 mutants
Omega
or whatever.
threats.
Omega threats, yes.
There's only a few of them, right? It's like Magneto, Charles, Jean,
Charles
Storm.
isn't.
Storm. Charles isn't even one. Yeah, so it's like 3.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah. I know Jean is. I know Storm is. Magneto is. There
Might be it.
there might be more than that, but I know there are at least those three.
Right. So you got one with a collar on his neck, can't do nothing.
yeah.
And I'm just thinking, you're an evil villain. Like what?
Right.
Why not?
Why just not get rid of him?
Why? Why is he on a? Why is he on a cross?
Yeah.
Why is he on an X?
Yes. Sacrifice.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a bigger problem. Anyways,
All
but
part of
yeah.
bigger
So
plan,
okay,
yeah.
so all right, so he amplifies his powers at the North Pole,
Takes out everything.
takes out everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yep.
So what's next?
Yeah, I mean, this is a 3-part series, so I mean, I think at the end of the day, the final confrontation or conflict is going to be between Charles and Magneto, but I do think this next episode is going to be something that brings them together.
He's got to get his helmet back.
They got it. Well, now, yeah, I guess you're right. Now that Charles is back,
Yeah.
what I think this next episode is them teaming up to get rid of Bastion and Sinister, only to lead up to a third part that is the final conclusion for Charles and Magneto's rivalry. That's what I think it is. I mean, I think that's the only thing I feel like would
The
make
Last
sense.
Dance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking forward to this, man. This is like, okay, out of all 8 of these episodes, one was a dud. One or half of an episode was
Yeah.
a dud,
And I kind of
and you kind of liked it.
Yeah.
And so this series is hitting on all cylinders right
I mean,
now.
I could
man.
watch again. And you know what I
Mm-hmm.
think about this series? Here you go. You ready?
I'm ready.
T-Roll found once again something that seems to be rewatchable.
Hey.
And also, it doesn't hurt that the episodes are short. Just have it on
Yeah.
in the background. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'll get it.
So, yeah, I'm really excited about it. Shimano, any other thoughts?
I mean, I feel like they did a really good job of giving you like sort of horror elements in it. So I did like how it would play some of those moments in it as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
man.
mean, old people, right?
What?
Horror elements.
Yes.
How scary old people can be, right?
I mean,
Yes.
old age in general, it's coming for us all.
It's already here for this podcast. Anyway,
Eh.
Trying to think if there's anything else.
To add one more family, just like whole Bastion situation, like dealing with family
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
That was weird. Like watching the alien come down and go inside the dad, and then the baby.
Yeah.
baby's
Yeah,
born.
and again, like you don't get a ton of like Here's why you should understand Bastion, but you get a little bit.
You get enough to where
You get more than you get in a lot of
yeah,
Marvel
it's sound
MCU
like,
shows.
yeah.
You get more than you got with the Flag Smashers or the
Yeah.
or the what are the clandestines
Oh
Yes.
no!
or whatever they were called. Like you get so much more with Bastion in like 4 minutes than about 85% or if not more of the villains from the quote unquote
Series,
villains from
yeah.
this series on
Yeah.
Disney Plus.
Yeah, dang, dude,
Yeah, I just
you just like that's a roast.
yeah,
right
Trevor
there,
would
dude.
like that, wouldn't he?
He would.
Yeah,
He'd be proud
would.
of you. Yeah.
Dang it! All right, all right. Well, if I'm agreeing with Trevor on something, it's time to cut this off. We will be back next week. So if you're still listening, thank you so much for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it, and we have really enjoyed this series. We need to try to maybe like watch the next two or maybe the last one together.
I think
That'd be
that's
cool.
possible.
Yeah,
for sure.
So we'll talk about that off the pod. But yeah, big shout out to everybody who has stuck around. These episodes are short and our podcasts are, pretty manageable. So hopefully you're still here. Please. Just a reminder to share this podcast with your friends. Seriously, if you have any Marvel friends, if you got any friends who enjoy X-Men in particular, please share this podcast with them. It helps us out tremendously. And also, subscribing to the podcast wherever you listen and leaving us a review would really, really help us out. So,
I do got a plug real quick.
ooh, we got a plug.
Plug
All
real
right.
quick. Okay, so if you guys are listening to this right now, we just plugged our socials on Instagram at Royal Geek Pod. In a couple weeks we got our anniversary episode coming up, and so if you guys want to participate, go ahead and DM the podcast and answer these questions. I'm gonna list them out real quick.
Oh, sure, okay.
All right. Send us a DM of what your favorite podcast moment was. Your favorite TV series that we covered was. The favorite movie that we covered was. And then one question that needs answering, and I'm referring to anything in the nerd world, geek world, or anything with the podcast specifically. And then the final question is, what should we retro review? So go ahead and answer those questions. DM us on @RoyalGeekPod on Instagram, and we would love to give you guys a shout out.
Email, too.
Yeah.
You could do email.
You can do email, royalgeekpodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
We would love to have you guys participate, and we will shout you out on our anniversary episode in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
So
I love it.
we appreciate you and love you guys.
That's great. Nah, I'm glad he said that. I was too tired to remember all that, but that's a good shout. Okay. Well, please come back next week for a review of the next episode of X-Men 97. And I think that's it. So with all that in mind, for my good friends Sandy and Shimado, this is T-Roll saying thank you so much for listening to the Royal Geek Podcast. We will see you next time, you mutants.